No one in the Orion border fleet expected first contact to arrive wrapped in perfect manners. The signal appeared at 3:17 station time, drifting in from the black between mapped lanes like a bottle on a cosmic tide. It was not a distress call, not a military ping, not pirate code, smuggler chatter, or one of the 1,000 background murmurs human systems had learned to ignore. It was music. At first, the listening officers thought it was an error, some kind of harmonic bleed from civilian channels. But the pattern repeated every 71 seconds, precise and deliberate. Beneath the layered chimes and velvet-smooth tones was data, a structure, language hidden inside art. By 5 o'clock, station linguists, military analysts, and 3 civilian xenomathematicians were packed into control, drinking stale coffee and arguing over probability trees. "It's intentional," Dr. Elisa Van said, tapping the holodisplay with a trembling finger. "Not just intentional, curated. Whoever sent this understands pattern recognition and aesthetic response. They want us to feel safe before we understand." Commander Adrian Holt folded his arms. "That's one interpretation. It's the correct one." No one contradicted her. On the central screen, the signal unfolded again. Soft chords, mathematically elegant intervals, and embedded deep inside, a map. Not a full star chart, just a corridor. A route through a sparse region of unclaimed systems near the edge of the Perseus Drift. At the end of it hung a single marked point beside a translated packet the AIs had rendered only minutes before. "To those who cross the dark between stars, you are welcomed. Come as guests. Come unarmed." The room went silent. Then Lieutenant Mercer laughed once, short and nervous. "Well, that's not ominous at all." But it was. Humanity had spent 200 years preparing for hostile contact. Every academy textbook, every naval doctrine tree, every simulation from Luna to Titan assumed the same thing. If aliens ever arrived, they would be cautious at best and murderous at worst. Nobody had prepared for courtesy. Courtesy was harder, a threat you could lock onto. A smile was another kind of weapon entirely. Within hours, the signal had leapt from military relays to civilian networks. By nightfall, the entire Sol Federation knew. News feeds called it the invitation. Markets surged. Religious groups declared prophecy fulfilled. Corporate councils started drafting trade projections before anyone even knew if the senders breathed oxygen. Children in schools painted silver ships and bright alien cities. Across Earth, Mars, and the orbital rings, humanity did what it always did when faced with the impossible. It celebrated first. That worried Holt more than the signal itself. He stood alone later in Observation Deck 3, staring out at the stars beyond the station glass. Behind him, the station buzzed with nervous excitement. Ahead was only darkness, cold and endless, cut by the faint traffic of patrol craft. Dr. Van joined him without asking. "You think it's bait," she said. "I think nobody sends an invitation across 13 light-years unless they already know exactly how you'll answer." She studied him for a moment. "And how will we answer?" Holt watched the stars and thought of the message. "Come as guests. Come unarmed." Then he gave the only answer a human officer could. "We'll smile," he said. "We'll shake their hands." His reflection in the glass looked tired, older than he felt. "And we'll bring the biggest fleet we can hide." Far out in the dark, the signal played on. Gentle, beautiful, patient, like a door left open, waiting for someone foolish enough to step through. By the time the fleet crossed into the Perseus Drift, the story had already escaped the admirals. No matter how tightly High Command locked down the mission details, The public had made it their own. News channels called it humanity's first handshake. Civilian artists sold glowing prints of imagined alien cities beneath lavender skies. Some idiot on Mars had even released a line of first contact formalwear, as though the unknown species waiting in deep space might appreciate tailored collars and silver thread cuffs. The military hated all of it, but the human crews loved it. On the bridge of the battlecruiser Resolute, Captain Adrian Holt stood beneath dim command lights and watched the last navigational markers fall behind them. Ahead, space opened wide and strangely empty, a silent bowl of black glass. The route embedded in the signal had guided them through dust-poor systems and abandoned gravity wells, through regions so quiet they almost felt curated. That was the first thing that bothered him. The second was that nothing had tried to stop them. Humanity had not come unarmed, of course. No sane admiral had agreed to that. The official envoy consisted of 3 diplomatic ships, 6 escorts, and 1 research vessel. Unofficially, hidden in staggered formation and masking their signatures behind interference fields, were 12 warships, 4 marine carriers, and enough missile mass to crack a moon open like an egg. Even so, Holt felt exposed. "Approaching final marker," said Lieutenant Mercer from Tactical. His usual humor had drained away sometime during the second jump. Reading artificial structures ahead. The main display sharpened. A collective hush rippled across the bridge. The alien station hung against the stars like a work of art. No hard angles. No visible weapons. Vast arcs of silver-white metal curved around a glowing central spindle, surrounded by smaller satellites that drifted in perfect formation like dancers circling a fire. It was beautiful in a way human warships never tried to be. Elegant, deliberate, meant to be admired. And near it, spaced in ceremonial rows, waited the alien ships. Dozens of them. Long, pale hulls with surfaces that shimmered like polished bone. Their drives glowed a soft blue. Their formation was too precise to be casual, too symmetrical to be tactical, or at least tactical in any way humans understood. Dr. Elisa Van stared at the screen like a pilgrim seeing a shrine. "They wanted this reaction," Holt said quietly. She didn't deny it. A transmission burst across comms, smooth and layered with the same haunting musical texture as the original signal. This time the translation came instantly, filtered through the fleet's language AIs. "Welcome, travelers. You honor US with your presence. Enter and be celebrated." Then the station lit up. Bands of gold and blue spilled across its outer shell. Thousands of tiny lights bloomed in synchronized waves. The satellites rotated outward like opening flower petals, revealing corridors wide enough for human ships to pass through. Even the alien vessels shifted aside in graceful, practiced motion, leaving a clear path to the center. It looked less like a checkpoint and more like a parade route. Lieutenant Mercer swallowed. "They're rolling out the red carpet. Or opening the jaws," Holt muttered. Still, the fleet advanced. Protocol required it. Pride demanded it. History itself seemed to press against their backs, urging them forward. Across every ship in the formation, cameras streamed the sight to awestruck crews. Some smiled. Some applauded. On civilian channels far back in Federation space, billions watched the approach live, cheering at screens as if this were a festival instead of an operation balanced on a knife edge. The first diplomatic shuttle prepared for launch. Ambassador Lien stepped aboard in formal white, flanked by translators, cultural analysts, and a ceremonial honor guard wearing dress uniforms polished to mirror shine. Holt met her at the docking collar. "If anything feels wrong," he said, "you turn around immediately." She gave him the thin smile of someone who understood danger and had chosen duty anyway. "Captain, everything feels wrong. That's what makes it history." He almost laughed. Almost. As the shuttle detached and began its slow glide toward the glowing heart of the station, Holt's eyes stayed fixed on tactical overlays layered beneath the beauty. Sensor ghosts. Energy blooms. Mass shadows hidden inside the station's hollow curves. Too regular. Too controlled. Too prepared. The alien lights brightened as the shuttle entered the open corridor. Across every human channel, commentators called it magnificent, hopeful, a triumph of reason over fear. On Holt's display, however, one quiet line of red text blinked into existence. Multiple targeting matrices detected. For 1 suspended second, no one on the bridge breathed. Then Holt looked at the blooming weapon signatures inside the smiling station and understood exactly what kind of welcome party they had walked into. Battle stations. Holt's voice cut across the bridge like a blade. The words snapped the crew out of their shock. Klaxons erupted a heartbeat later, shrill and urgent, flooding the Resolute with red light. On the main display, the elegant alien station still glittered like a jewel against the dark. Gold and blue lights rippled across its shell. The welcoming corridor remained open. The diplomatic shuttle drifted toward its center like a candle floating into a furnace. Only now the illusion had cracked. Tactical overlays peeled the beauty away and showed the machinery beneath. Hidden compartments were unfolding inside the station's sweeping curves. Energy blooms flared in symmetrical patterns. The drifting satellites that had looked like ornaments rotated on buried axles, exposing black apertures large enough to swallow a frigate whole. "They masked the signatures inside the light show," Mercer said, voice tight. "God!" On another screen, Dr. Elisa Van stared at the feed as if watching a painting bleed. "It was all choreography," she whispered. "Every motion, every light pulse. They built the entire presentation around sensor distraction. They built a killing ground," Holt said. The alien transmission returned, calm and musical. "Be at ease, guests. Enter and be celebrated." At the same instant, the station fired. The first volley was not aimed at the human warships. It went for the diplomats. Lances of pale light speared out from the newly opened weapon ports, converging on Ambassador Lien's shuttle with mathematical precision. Holt felt his stomach drop, but the shuttle vanished behind a blossom of blue-white flare before the beams struck. Defensive screens, human-made, illegal under the terms of the invitation, and very much present, exploded into life around the tiny craft. "Shuttle shields holding," Mercer shouted. "Barely." The bridge came alive in overlapping voices. "Contact reports. Weapons status. Drive signatures." Threat vectors multiplied so quickly they became a storm of symbols across the tactical glass. Then the rest of the ambush hit. Space itself seemed to split open around the human formation. Gravity mines ignited along the route they had followed in, blooming into violent distortions that snapped 2 escort ships sideways and crushed a third beneath tidal stress before anyone had time to scream. From the dark beyond the station, alien warships powered up from silent drift, dozens of pale hulls flaring blue as they swung into attack formation. What had looked ceremonial from a distance now resolved into perfect interlocking kill lanes. "They've boxed us," Mercer said. "Front, rear, lateral. They timed the mines to close our exit corridor." Of course they had. It was flawless, elegant, total. Every human instinct leaned toward panic. The ambush had been designed for it. Cut off the head, blind the body, shatter the formation before the prey understood it had been hunted at all. On the civilian feed back in Federation space, the glorious first contact broadcast dissolved into static and screams. Holt stood very still at the center of the storm. "Signal all groups," he said. "Sir." "Execute hospitality." For half a second, Mercer just blinked. Then his face changed. The bridge crew straightened like a single organism remembering its teeth. Because humanity had not walked into the trap blindly. Holt had been right from the beginning. No one sent an invitation this perfect without already planning the answer. And if humans had learned anything in their centuries among pirates, tyrants, and ambitious neighbors, it was this. Anything that smiled too beautifully usually had fangs. The Resolute rolled hard to port as the second volley came in, alien beams carving molten scars across her outer armor. Holt barely felt the impact. He was already watching the hidden fleet markers flicker to life on the edge of the tactical display. One by one, the empty pockets of dark around the battlespace tore open. Interference fields collapsed. Stealthed human warships emerged in full. 12 destroyers, 4 marine carriers, and the heavy cruiser Valiant erupted from concealment like steel ghosts, drives burning bright and weapons already hot. Missile hatches flowered open across their hulls. Rail batteries pivoted. Electronic warfare blooms spread like ink through the void, clawing into the alien targeting web. The aliens had planned for diplomats, escorts, and fear. They had not planned for guests who brought a second party. A grin spread across Mercer's face, sharp and feral now. "Looks like we RSVP'd." Holt's eyes locked on the station, on the glowing heart of the ambush, still trying to pretend it was a celebration. "Transmit on all channels," he said. Mercer nodded and pushed it through. Holt spoke into the fire. "Human vessel Resolute to unknown host," he said, voice calm as the battle erupted around him. "Thank you for the invitation." The first human missile wave launched. "And congratulations," Holt finished, watching hundreds of warheads streak toward the smiling station, "on making the biggest mistake of your species." The void between fleets vanished beneath fire. Human missiles screamed across the battlespace in dense silver swarms, each warhead weaving through electronic countermeasures with predatory intelligence. The alien station answered with sheets of pale energy that turned the dark into a storm of blinding lines. One missile wave died in a chain of white blossoms. Another slipped through. 3 impacts hammered the station's outer arcs, shattering graceful silver curves into incandescent debris. On the bridge of the Resolute, nobody cheered. It was too early for that. "Alien formation breaking," Mercer called, hands dancing over tactical controls. "They're trying to pivot the outer screen toward the hidden task group." "Of course they are," Holt said. "They expected prey. Now they've found teeth." The deck shuddered hard under his boots as a beam rake clipped the battlecruiser's dorsal armor. Lights flickered. Somewhere deep in the hull, metal screamed. Damage reports flooded in, but Holt pushed them aside for the moment. The ship was still fighting. That was enough. Around them, the battle transformed. The aliens had planned a flawless execution, swift decapitation, sealed exits, overlapping fire, panic in the center. It would have worked against almost anyone else. But humans had built their military culture on one ugly truth. Every plan fails the moment somebody starts lying. And in war, everyone lied. The invitation had been a lie. Humanity had simply lied better. "Hospitality groups 2 and 3 are in position," Mercer said. "Marine carriers standing by." Dr. Elisa Van looked up sharply from her station. "You're boarding them?" Holt spared her a glance. They wanted guests. Another impact jolted the bridge. This one closer. A console erupted in sparks. A crewman cried out, dragging another clear as emergency shutters slammed down over a ruptured compartment. The smell of ozone thickened the air. Still the humans kept moving. The hidden destroyers split wide, breaking into hunter packs the moment they revealed themselves. Not a rigid line. Not ceremonial rows. Chaotic, asymmetrical, unpredictable. One group drove hard toward the alien flank, pelting it with kinetic rounds and jamming bursts. Another dropped decoy signatures and vanished behind their own debris cloud before reappearing inside the enemy firing envelope. The heavy cruiser Valiant plowed directly at the station, broadside batteries hammering with enough force to make the whole structure tremble. The alien formation hesitated. Only for a second. But in battle, a second was blood. "They're confused," Mercer said, almost disbelieving. "They keep trying to restore pattern spacing." Holt understood immediately. The alien fleet fought like their station had been built, beautifully, symmetrically. Every ship positioned for harmony, every motion measured against the whole. It was elegant, efficient, and disastrously brittle. Humans were not elegant. Human ships cut across one another's firing lanes, baited, doubled back, improvised, shouted over comms, ignored doctrine the instant doctrine became inconvenient, and somehow turned near disaster into momentum through sheer nerve and stubbornness. What looked like disorder to an outside observer was, in truth, a language of aggression the species had been refining since it first tied sharp rocks to sticks. The aliens had studied human signals, art, diplomacy, perhaps even history. They had not understood human humor. That was their real mistake. Because as the ambush collapsed into a brawl, the human fleet's internal channels filled not with terror, but with laughter. Tired laughter. Sharp laughter. The laughter of people who had seen the knife coming and were delighted to prove it wasn't enough. Open comms crackled from the destroyer Maraud as it slashed past an alien cruiser close enough to scrape hull plating. "Hey, Holt," came the captain's voice through static. "Your welcome party's a little rude." Even Holt smiled at that. Then Mercer's grin vanished. "Sir, station core charging. Big one. Much bigger than the others." The tactical display magnified the alien structure's glowing center. Power flooded inward from every surviving arc and satellite, gathering into the spindle at its heart. The elegant shell brightened until it looked like a star being born in miniature. Dr. Van went pale. "That's not a weapon for ships," she said. "That's for the whole fleet." A silence hit the bridge like vacuum. The aliens, realizing the trap had failed, were about to erase the board. Holt stared at the charging core, at the still intact corridor where Ambassador Lien's shuttle had vanished minutes ago, and made the only decision left. "Launch the Marines," he said. Mercer turned. "Into that." Holt's eyes stayed fixed on the blazing station heart. "She's still in there," he said. "And if that core fires, nobody leaves." He straightened, calm settling over him like armor. Time to bring the party inside. The first Marine pods hit the alien station under a storm of fire. They launched from the carriers in tight burning waves, each one a slab of armored metal wrapped around 12 human beings and just enough propulsion to turn courage into momentum. Alien point defense shredded half the first volley before it crossed the corridor. The survivors kept coming. One pod cartwheeled end over end with its engine on fire, and still smashed through the station's outer skin hard enough to bury itself 3 decks deep. On the bridge of the Resolute, Holt watched the impact markers bloom across tactical. "Boarding teams inside," Mercer said. "Signal scatter is heavy. We've got partial telemetry only." Partial was enough. The fleet battle still raged outside, but everything now bent around the station core. The great spindle at its center was blazing brighter by the second, swallowing power from every surviving satellite and vessel in range. Alien ships were peeling away from the fight and throwing themselves between the human fleet and the station, not to attack now, but to buy time. That told Holt everything. Core charge status? 81%. Too fast. He switched to Marine Command frequencies. Static roared for a second, then a voice punched through, breathing hard, gunfire cracking in the background. "This is Raider 1. We are inside. Repeat, we are inside, and these hosts are very unhappy." A grim ripple of laughter crossed the bridge. "Report," Holt said. The Marine captain, Sir Ortez, answered between bursts of violence. "Interior layout is insane. No straight corridors, no obvious central spine. Everything curves. Everything glows. Also, they absolutely do have close-quarters troops, and they are much taller than advertised. Can you reach the core?" A pause. A scream in the background. "Alien, not human." "We found someone who seems to know the way," Ortez said. "Negotiations ongoing." The line cut in a hiss of interference. Dr. Van stood rigid beside Holt, staring at data streams she could barely understand fast enough. "Why keep charging it?" she whispered. "If they wanted conquest, this destroys the prize. If they wanted a massacre, they already failed." Holt didn't answer immediately. He was looking at the larger pattern now. The station. The theatrical invitation. The perfect geometry of the ambush. The insistence on beauty, control, performance. Then he understood. "It was never just a trap," he said. "It's doctrine." Mercer frowned. "Sir, they don't just win battles. They stage them. Every move has to be flawless, total, undeniable." He looked at the burning station heart. "And they'd rather kill everyone than be seen losing." Outside, the Valiant drove through 2 alien cruisers at point-blank range, its railguns punching incandescent tunnels through pale holes. Human destroyers swarmed the gaps like wolves. The alien formation was still disciplined, still deadly, but its rhythm was gone. Every improvised human feint forced another break in pattern. Every broken pattern bred hesitation. Then a new signal burst across all channels. Not from the fleet. From inside the station. Ambassador Lien appeared on the main screen, bruised, soot-streaked, and very much alive. Behind her, the curved alien chamber flashed with emergency crimson. "Captain Holt," she said, breathless but composed, "our hosts have finally agreed to speak plainly." The image shifted. Beside her stood an alien for the first time seen clearly. Tall, silver-skinned, draped in luminous fabric, its face elegant and unreadable except for one thing: fear. Its translated voice trembled with strain. "Withdraw your forces. The heart will consume this place." Holt stepped toward the screen. "Then shut it down." "It cannot be shut down. Only completed. Or broken." Dr. Van's head snapped up. "Broken how?" Before the alien could answer, Captain Ortez cut back in overcoms, laughing like a woman at the edge of something magnificent and stupid. "Found the core," she shouted. "Good news. It's fragile. Bad news. We're standing on it." Mercer stared. Standing on. The station shuddered so hard that every display on the bridge jumped. Ortez came back, panting. "Captain, this thing wasn't built to survive internal damage. It's all nested resonance chambers. One shaped charge in the wrong place, and the whole fancy music box comes apart." Holt looked at the tactical display. "Core charge, 93%. No time left." He met Ambassador Lien's eyes on the screen. She understood before he spoke. "Get out," he said. She gave one small nod. With pleasure. The next 30 seconds were chaos refined into decision. Human ships surged forward as one, dumping every reserve into shields and point defense to cover the extraction corridor. Marine beacons flared inside the station. Escape pods blasted from newly ruptured hull sections. Alien ships tried to close, but now there was panic in their motion. Real panic, raw and ugly, the kind they had planned so carefully for humans to feel. Only humans had gotten their second. Core at 97%, Mercer said. Then Orteza's voice returned one last time. Calm now. Tell whoever writes the history books, she said, that this place had terrible hospitality. The station vanished in white. Not an explosion at first. A collapse. Light folding inward. Structure imploding through its own impossible geometry. Then came the bloom, vast, silent, and terrible, rolling through the battlefield in a ring of shattered silver and dead blue fire. Human ships bucked under the shock wave but held. Alien vessels closer to the station broke apart like porcelain. And then it was over. The heart of the ambush was gone. Across the wreckage-strewn dark, surviving alien ships began to run. No one chased them immediately. On the bridge, nobody spoke for several long seconds. Then Mercer let out a shaky breath and looked at Holt. They really did build the perfect trap. Holt watched rescue icons gathering around the drifting escape pods. Yes, he said softly. On the screen, humanity's fleet moved through the ruin with guns still hot and smiles no longer hidden. They just forgot one thing. Mercer swallowed. What's that? Holt's tired grin returned as he looked out over the broken battlefield. Humans love surprises.